Welcome everyone to our discussion tonight. I'm here with a panel of experts to talk about betrayal trauma and addiction, specifically sex addiction or pornography addiction, the dynamics of the relationship and the ways that we can help and support. Our whole goal is to offer encouragement and hope and understanding. Kathy Kinghorn is the first one on my list to introduce. She's a licensed clinical social worker. She's a therapist and business owner. Name of your business, Kathy Kinghorn. Kathy Kinghorn, coaching or?
It is, and I have a couple of them, but that's one. Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Okay, very good. And we'll get links to. We'll share links and all that to connect with any of these people that are on here too, if you want to. She specializes in the treatment of sexual addiction and betrayal trauma. She is in the process of creating a 100-week online curriculum for sexual addiction recovery and betrayal trauma recovery. She has spoken nationally and locally on mental health topics, primarily sexual addiction. And then we have, not in here, but there is someone that we do have also that has been a part of our discussions, a part of our panel is Dr. Nathaniel Lambert, Dr. Lambert. And most people know him by Nate in our group. In fact, people I think are surprised to hear that he's a doctor because he is a real estate agent. He's crushing it in the real estate world, but he also has a doctorate. He has provided some scholarly articles, what is he called it? Several scientific journal articles on the topic of pornography. So we can use some of the stuff that he has provided too. And if he comes in here, he can answer some of our questions. He has a PhD in family psychology and has done extensive research. And I talked about the articles that he's written. He's also a former college professor. He worked for Brigham Young University for several years. Barney Bown. She experienced betrayal trauma after 21-year marriage. She's a public speaker. She recently spoke at the Life After Divorce conference hosted by Brigham Young University. She's married now and has 9 children. And as a result of this blended family, that's 9 children. So you had, how many did you have?
I had 4, he had 5, and then my son got married. So we got 12 of us, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. And she's a life coach for anyone needing to heal from betrayal trauma, male or female. I was happy to hear it's for male and female because I do hear men even are telling me that they would love to see that there is more support out there for them. And she's passionate about supporting, educating, and empowering individuals on how to survive betrayal trauma. And her goal is to instill faith and hope and healing. And Blue Robinson is clinical mental health clinician. Is that how you say it? Did I say that?
That's fine. Yeah. Clinical mental health counselor. You bet.
Okay. SUDC. Say that. What are the acronyms?
That's a substance use disorder counselor. So duly licensed. Yeah.
Very good. Okay. So he owns Addict to Athlete. It's a nonprofit organization. And you can find them on Facebook and Instagram. We can talk about this a little bit later too, but they do support groups online, correct? Is it online or in person?
Both.
Maybe both. Mm-hmm. You can come and join them or you can watch it streamed. And then on Wednesdays, they also do the Q&A, right? Every Wednesday with your wife.
Yep. Me and her.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So you can join those, you can watch them. That is awesome. So we'll talk about some of his beliefs of erasing and replacing. But anyway, they support anyone who is struggling with or in recovery from any addiction. So he understands addiction extensively. He has over almost 9,000 followers, 8.6 thousand followers on his Facebook page. So he knows what he's talking about, and a lot of people are finding success in what he's teaching. So that will be fun to hear a lot of the stuff that you share. And then Raquel Custer, she is a life coach. Oh, we should have you guys raise hands. I'm sorry. So Kathy, raise your hand. Show us who you are. And then Marnie and Blue, the only male on here right now, so you can guess that's Blue. And then Raquel, you raise your hand. Raquel, she's a life coach. She specializes in partner betrayal. She is APSATS, the Association of Partners of Sex Addicts Trauma Specialists. She started as a betrayal trauma coach through Bloom for Women and now has her own private coaching practice, The Healer's Art. She has a bachelor's degree in marriage and family and human development with a minor in sociology, and she's trained as a family life coach. Holly Martinez, a clinical mental health therapist and works at Therapy Utah. She works with Kathy at Therapy Utah. She specializes in sex addiction and betrayal trauma, working with groups, individuals, and eventually as couples. And she has a passion for EMDR, accelerated resolution therapy, and Sue Johnson's attachment-based emotional focused couples therapy. So I'm excited. I actually have, and I have written a kind of a brief outline of stuff that I wanted to talk about tonight. And some of the things that we've collaborated about, what their areas of expertise are. So I may address you as the question comes up that may be your specialty, but anyone that's in this call with us, you are welcome to throw in the chat any questions that you have throughout the whole discussion. So I may address someone in specifically, but if you have more to add, please do. You can just stop me. Sherry, I have something else to add. And that's awesome. Perfectly fine. So first question that came up to me that was brought up is that they would love for you to define, and I will direct this to Blue first, if you don't mind, Blue.
Yeah.
Define what is addiction? How do they know if it's an addiction? Some are saying, I don't have an addiction. It's just a compulsion and I don't have an addiction.
Yeah, it's a great question. Addiction is simply a pattern of compulsive behaviors that really do kind of start to have very strong like issues in the degrees of social lives, occupation, maybe legal, and it has consequences. And despite those negative consequences, they continue on. And so, the DSM has changed a little bit from dependence and abuse, but I still kind of refer to that quite a bit because there's a huge difference between someone that gets dependent on something versus someone that abuses a substance or a behavior. And it is kind of an interesting, I guess, paradigm that we're in right now where some of the sexual addiction doesn't quite register yet the DSM. It needs to because it's very prevalent. But when you look at the cause of addiction, I'm a firm believer that it's all stems from some place in trauma. And so that's why I'm eager to hear from our panelists today too, because there's going to be a lot of light shed on so many different aspects of this. But to simplify it down to its Cliff Notes version, I would say it's a pattern of compulsive behaviors. And despite those negative consequences, it continues and it increases. The secrecy, the gaslighting, all that stuff kind of floods in because at the core of the person who's battling the addiction, there's a core issue in there that they haven't identified yet, that they're afraid to get to, and that's where all of you panelists and all of us come in to help them discover that. I believe that addiction can be cured. I think with the right principles and with the right set of team like we've got assembled here. I'm a firm believer it can be overcome. I've seen it. So excited to be here and to participate in this way.
Very good. Thank you.
One of the things that's so fascinating to me, just from a Christian perspective, scientists keep proving the Christian knowledge, I think, to be accurate. I'll give you an example. What happens with addiction is it shrinks our dopamine receptors, and we can see that. I could show you a picture of those actually shrunken. So what happens is they get overused, where dopamines are what scientists call our joy receptors. That's what scientists call it. Mm. And to get that dopamine in, it starts to shrink. So we crave that hit, but we can't get that same big hit because they're shrunk. Mm. So think about it. If you imagine, and maybe we shouldn't, but let's just maybe for the moment imagine a council that the adversary got together and he said, look, guys, we got to go after him. We got to go after him hard and we got to hit their brain. What do you guys think? With laser-like precision, the adversary went after what scientists call our joy receptors. Men are that they might have joy. What did he go after? Our joy receptors.
Wow. That's very insightful.
If I can add something too.
Yes.
just kind of thinking about the sexual addiction, and we all have different, as Kathy was saying, different arousal templates. And we're all trying to get a need met. Something that's different about sex addiction that might be different against maybe drugs and alcohol and other types is that we're actually not trying to take the sex away, right? It's something that we're actually want to be a healthy part. So there's managing that, is that it's not about going dry. To have a sexual health, a sexual healthy sexuality isn't about cutting out sex from your life, but using it in a healthy way that, through positive coping skills and using it to connect. So it's a little bit different than some of the ones where we just take it away.
I'm glad you said that. Someone asked me when I told them that I worked for a therapist that specialized in sex addiction. They said, sex addiction. He was just shocked. And he said, so how do they cure that? Sobriety? Like, no, does that mean abstinence? Is that how you cure it? So anyway, I said, no, they cure it with connection is my answer. We're deferring to Marnie. And that is, what is the loved one? What is the loved one's experience? And all of you can speak to this. Kathy, I can quote Kathy. She, when we first talked, she said, the way that she thought about betrayal trauma is you can't be betrayed until you have trusted. So that means that you have it in you to trust, right? And it's learning how to trust again. But what is it that breaks the trust? Marnie, anything that you have to say about defining the effects, the characteristics of the spouse? What happens when they learn of their spouse's behaviors?
Yeah, so I feel like when I found everything out, it really was the shattered world. Like everything in my life and the way that I saw it wasn't true. I saw that there was this other life. I'd been married for 21 years to someone who had his acting out had evolved to an extremity of prostitutes, strippers. I hadn't known about anything really with pornography. Looking back now, I can see being educated, but I only caught pornography the first year in our marriage of the 21 years. So when I caught his work phone, and also he was that spiritual, Christ-like leader person that even when things didn't seem right, I believed who he showed me who he was. And I would even kind of make excuses for him in ways because it had to be true. I convinced myself of his truths in a lot of ways, the whole gaslighting, things like that. Anyway, so for me, the actual discovery, which we refer to as the D-Day, was when it ultimately just fell apart. And I pulled on a string that just kept going back farther and farther and farther and farther back. And the most difficult part, I think, for me in that experience was the lack of trust that I had in myself. I am a naturally trusting person, but everybody's bank account of trust, if you want to call it that, was zero. And it was easy to gain back for, family and friends, specific people. But for myself, I feel like I am almost the one that took the longest because I didn't trust my own judgment. And I have a college degree. I'm educated and outgoing and I will address things. I'm not willing to do that. And so I couldn't understand how I didn't see. I had been around family members who are alcoholics, involved with drugs. So for me to, again, be living with someone who was involved with this, but I didn't believe that they could be, I just thought was wrong with me. I'm so dumb. And then to follow up, so many people would be like, did you really not know? Or how did you really not know? And again, it goes back to what Kathy's saying. Like, I really did trust so much of what he was. So, there's so much of the PTSD symptoms that kind of come along with that, where I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. My mind was almost like it was hijacked. I would be driving and not remember where I was because I was literally trying to piece conversations and timelines of where I was and what was really happening. And then, just like the nightmares, there was a long list for me that really took a long time, and not even really being able to be the mom that I needed to be for my kids because I was so distracted in my new life and what is my marriage and where are we going? And I had him move out and with the intent to have him move back in, but it just, again, pulling on things that he continued his behavior and fighting for someone who's not fighting for you, that he just really wanted, in my experience, wanted it to go back to normal. But to me, I now knew, and it wasn't normal. And in ways it was almost more hurtful that he knew I knew and would still go act out.
Yeah, that is, thank you for sharing that, Marnie. It takes a lot of courage to share that. There are a lot of women I know that experience that are not as not ready to share it publicly. So I know that you speak to a lot of women. There are other experiences too, and anyone that wants to share can definitely share.
A partner, significant other, and that can even go into other relationships, but just experiencing betrayal from someone who you're supposed to, who's supposed to provide safety and security, and that's where you experience, betrayal.
There is someone who is asking, and so I'm wondering if you have a preference, David. He wants to know what is the best way he can support someone that is experiencing betrayal trauma recovery. What is the best way he can, as her boyfriend, what is the best way he can support her? Who wants to answer that? Marnie, you look like you had an answer.
I mean, I certainly feel like that is, I remember when I was dating, I'm like, I'm a lot to take on because there's a lot. I think I remember my therapist telling me just that I needed to be able to find someone that held so much integrity that despite my constant questions or challenging, that he just knew who he was. And I'm now remarried, but it's to someone who, because I have my own almost like amnesia, trauma amnesia. So I will forget things. And so he's patient in helping me remember some of those things. And part of that is also me looking for consistency in his stories as I gain through trust. So trust is an absolute thing. Vulnerability and loving. I mean, it's really being able to let go. I would say also, being consistently honest. That is, and then managing like the triggers. I still have things that will come up that I don't even anticipate. I don't know. For me, I have to do like the tapping. And so he's learning how, like in those moments, what do you need from me? And it's for me, even because my kids know, it's like they talk to me. They just try to help talk to me, pull me out, kind of bring frontal lobe, and just until I can pull out. But there are certainly times where I personally will, it's that fight or flight, and again, I feel like I'm in The Notebook, that book or the movie, where he has to help recall and bring me back to, because if I feel any sort of potential trauma, I protect myself, and then I become where I need his help in remembering. So I would say just if she's asking you a lot of questions, or she needs to see something, or, even if there's no reason for it, she's relearning to trust in herself. And even if she's wrong, then it's okay. But it was that I have the courage to be able to ask, and that I know that I feel safe, that if I'm going to ask, that it's like, okay, what do you need? What else can I do for you? Or how, and just being willing to know what that looks like.
And don't hold back because of maybe a judgment where you might say that's kind of odd to ask for that, and you should know better, or you should just trust me. I think
don't you know who I am? Like, can't you tell? It's like, I'm looking for that constantly.
Yeah. And then there'll be a day, just like Marnie expresses, that I can trust you now. And I see that you're trustworthy. I see that you've told me enough times that I can trust you, and you've shown me enough times that I'm at a point where I can trust you. So that if anyone that comes onto the class has anything to share too, any kind of coaching support or anything else, we just want this community to be a place where people can find support in any modality, any way they need, any personality they like. So I will drop links for all of you guys in this post when I put it on YouTube, and then I'll share it with you, the links for that. You can share them. So thank you guys, all of you, for being here and all that you shared. And if we have any other questions, we'll for sure direct them to the right people, people that they want.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Good meeting you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.